Is Dr. Tracey Wilen on with us right now?
Yes, I am.
Well, good morning. How are you?
Well, good morning to you, Tom. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine, really. Welcome to America's Trucking Network. So happy to have you with us now. Ladies and gentlemen, and I use that term loosely, let me tell you just a little bit about Dr. Tracey Wilen. If I may indulge just a bit. Dr. Tracey Wilen.
Yes.
Dr. Tracey Wilen is what she is, she's a prominent thought leader. Now, let me stop right there. Dr. Wilen, how does one become a thought leader? Explain that to me.
Well, Tom, I spent many years in corporate America here in Silicon Valley, and I've also been a visiting scholar at Stanford. So I've done a lot of research on careers and really how technology is just changing the landscape for all of us.
And what you do, I'm going to kind of break it. What you do is you basically help people that are thinking about changing careers. You use your expertise to guide people in the right direction, pretty much. Am I making that too simple? Am I missing something?
No. I think the landscape is really hard for people. When you're looking for a job or you want a career transition. And anything I can do to really help people, I try to do.
Now, you've spent some time in a leadership role, I might add, with folks like Apple, HP, Cisco, the Apollo Group. You've also authored a few books, haven't you?
Yes. Over the years, I've authored 11 books, and that look at either workforce or business or women or careers. And really, again, it's all about how technology is just changing the landscape and what are some of the things that we need to think about as we're developing our career plans.
Yeah, technology, and I kind of feel like this a lot of times. I feel like I've been in radio somewhere right about 30 years, and at times I feel like the technology, how you say the landscape has changed so much. I feel like technology has passed me by. And sometimes I think, well, you know what? That's my own fault, and it's probably hurt me a time or two, not applying myself to kind of keep up with all the changes. Maybe that's easier said than done. Now, you've mentioned that you've authored 11 books. Now, then, by the way, the latest book is entitled "Employed for Life: 21st Century Career Trends." Is that available pretty much anywhere?
Yeah, so you can go to Amazon, or you can certainly come to my website, which is TraceyWilen.com. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
And by the way, Tracey, there's an E between the C and the Y, so it's yeah. We want to get that, and we'll reiterate that before we wrap up our interview. We're going to talk about jobs and working in the trucking industry this morning because, you kind of know what's going on, don't you?
Well, I have a fondness in my heart for people who are drivers or in the trucking industry. I'm one of those people who grew up, having family road trips, and my parents were the people who always said, make sure you wave to the truckers because they're hard workers and they're nice people and they drive these enormous vehicles. And make sure you give them a wave because they'll probably give you a toot back. And let me tell you, I have a deep place in my heart for people who drive.
So now I got to ask you, Dr. Wilen, were you one of those kids that did the fist, tell them to get them to blow their air horn?
Yes, and we had to do the license. We always had to track the license because the truck drivers always had the best licenses, and if you grew up in a family like I did, that was the game, right? You had to follow the license plate of the truck driver because they always had really interesting places where they were coming to and going to.
It's all, you always wondered that when you'd see the trucks going down, to pass them up on the interstate. Where are they going? Where are they coming from?
I know, and they're the nicest people. They were just the nicest people at any truck stop, so I just have a huge place in my heart.
And, now there are a lot of guys, especially. Now, I was reading somewhere you had talked about or mentioned about a trucker, a driver shortage. Yeah, it's expected to continue or to peak, actually, this year.
Oh, yeah. So I spend a lot of time talking, actually, to community colleges and employers. And truck drivers are actually one of these skills and, professions that there's a shortage. And it's one of those where we're looking for people who are willing and interested in driving. But at the same time, it's one of these professions that has really high turnover, and I think that in itself, I mean, it can go up to 97%. And this is one of these professions that it just takes a special person who can really do this kind of work. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, and just this past week, there was an article, it was on the internet, so it must be true. There was an article that the 20-somethings, the trucking industry, they're having a hard time recruiting the 20-somethings. And honestly, a lot of the drivers that call in here on a nightly basis, or I know at least on the weekends, there seems to be a problem with a lot of the greenhorns, the new guys that are getting up behind, up into the cab and getting behind the wheel and whatnot. Apparently, listen to some of the more seasoned drivers that call in. These young guys that are coming in, for lack of a better term, they're kind of reckless.
Yeah, so, Tom, I want to tell you a story because I met this wonderful man who was a chief executive officer, the CEO of a very large, well-known soda company in the United States. And I remember interviewing him, and I said to him, tell me about your career path. What was your first job? And he said, Tracey, my first job was as a trucker. It was a trucker for the beverage industry. And he said it was the best job I ever had because I learned about the industry, and I think that's really important for anyone who wants to run a company because when you're driving and you're a trucker, you learn about the customers, you learn about the distributors, you learn about the bottlers, you learn about America. And he said, I did so well in my career that I insisted that my son, when he started looking at his career path, that he start as a trucker. So I think for young people, I think a lot of us want to, just jump to the top. But his guidance was so important to me because he just said the way that you understand business is by really getting hands-on experience. And what better way but by touching Americans and touching consumers and people who are doing the business. So to young people, I know you really want to start at the top, but sometimes learning the business and trucking is the best way to do it. It can be a path.
I know, and moving forward, and a lot of there are a lot of guys and men and women drivers. They may be at a point they're thinking about, you know what, I need to do something different. I got, I've had a good run up here in the cab. I've got to do something different. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I understand that. I think a big question is, should I keep on trucking? And, and I think that's a personal choice, and I encourage people when you're assessing your career, you have to look at what do you like to do and what do you do well. And so I actually went out and talked to people who drive. And it can be driving whether it's a truck or whether it's driving a limo, a bus, or even some of the places like Google Express or DHL or UPS. And they said, first and foremost, what's important is assess what you like to do. Do you like to drive? If you like to drive, there's a lot of options for you. It may not be long haul or it may not be short, but you have to sort of decide, do you want to drive or not? And if you do like to drive, it's a great career path. And then the next step is just figuring out what makes sense for you.
Now, and something else that you address is making better use of your downtime. Now, I'm thinking, a lot of the guys, men and the women, downtime is just that. For a lot of folks, it's downtime. I ain't doing nothing. However, there are those who like to maybe they want to improve themselves, put themselves in a better place. Downtime comes around. What suggestions would you have?
Well, as you're assessing your career path, I have met a lot of individuals who said, well, what I do with my downtime is explore with myself. For example, do I want to get additional certifications? And I've met a lot of people who have said, the way that I can enhance my career options is, should I just have certifications in long-haul rides, or should I also get certifications to be eligible for farming or courier or limo or buses? I mean, if you think about today, logistics and transportation is a hot area. I mean, everything when you think about Amazon doing express delivery, if you think about Google Express doing same-day delivery, drivers are in demand, or the new one right now is Uber. I don't know if you have Uber by you, but it's very popular in the cities where people drive. They share their cars, or they get limos and they share them, and they have other kinds of jobs. So I think what it is in trucking and driving in general is, what's a good fit for yourself? Is it, are you a person who would like to be on the road for a long time and explore the United States? Or are you very social? Do you want to be in a position where you're picking up passengers and talking to them? Do you want to have a regional job because you might have family and responsibilities, so you'd like to be home and not away for 3 weeks? So your downtime can be a place where you can start to think about, should I get additional certifications? Should I start to think about ways to explore other avenues for my skills? Because you're very skilled. You're in very high demand, so you're already ahead of the curve because you're driving, and there's a lot of demand for that.
We're visiting with Dr. Tracey Wilen, thought leader, global speaker, easy for me to say, right? Media contributor. Dr. Tracey Wilen, Tracey at TraceyWilen.com, is that right?
That's right.
Tracey at TraceyWilen. And again, there's an E between the C and the Y in Tracey. Very important.
Yes, and you can tweet me at Tracey Wilen, which is TraceyWilen, and I'd love to hear about what people are up to and what they're thinking about.
Now, you have at your website, you have numerous links for folks in the trucking industry specifically to check out, right?
Well, here's what I did, Tom, is I went out and said, I personally do not like to drive. So I love drivers, but I don't like to drive. But I love drivers because I love to be driven around.
Well, the thing is, if they're not hauling the goods, we ain't getting them.
That's right. That's right. It's the backbone of America. And so what I did is I sort of went through the mental path of saying, because I've been in careers where it wasn't an exact fit for me, but I said, what do I need to do to start to explore? So I went out and said, well, let's say I'm a truck driver and I'm looking at my options. How do I go about this? What are some of the things I should think about? And definitely I said, well, you need to have self-assessment with yourself. Do I like to drive? Do I like to do long-haul drives? Do I like to explore America? Would I rather be local? Do I want to be social? And I think that's really important. But second is this part of a career plan for myself? And those are things I think that everyone asks is, if I'm driving now, where will this go? Right? Should I be targeting key firms that have growth opportunities for myself? And as I looked around in the trucking industry, a lot mentioned that they would like to work for, or they are working for places like Walmart or Schneider or Gordon, because they offer more lateral opportunities. What is the end game for me? And I think that's important for anyone in career development to say, what is the end game? Why am I doing this? Where would I like to get to? And what are the steps to get there? And those are the kinds of links that I pulled up.
Tracey at TraceyWilen.com. That's TraceyWilen.com. TraceyWilen.com. Thought leader, global speaker, media contributor, head cook and bottle washer. You name it, she does it. She wears 1,000 different hats, and she's very good at what she does. And again, her latest book, Employed for Life: 21st Century Career Trends. And Dr. Wilen, I want to thank you so much for joining us here in America's Trucking Network this morning.
Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate it, and toot toot to everyone who's listening.